virtually everybody that has looked at this case, including rhinos and even hardcore Democrats, say there is no crime and that it should never have been brought. It's an insult to our country, as the world is already laughing at us for so many other reasons. And this is where we are right now. I have a Trump-hating judge with a Trump-hating wife and family whose daughter worked for Kamala Harris and now receives money from the Biden-Harris campaign.
Well, that was former President Trump last night. Speaking at Mar-a-Lago, he's slamming both Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg and the judge presiding over his trial. Trump pled not guilty to 34 counts of falsifying business records. Joining us now is Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton with reaction. AG, good to see you this morning. Thanks so much for weighing in here. What is your reaction to all of this?
Look, we all know, I think everybody knows, these charges would never have been brought had it not been for Donald J. Trump. And these are, by definition, trumped-up charges with the pun intended. Nobody else would have had this brought against them. This is crazy.
Well, I mean, what can be done about it? We're talking every day about the weaponization of government.
You know, it's very frustrating to me. I've been through this. I've seen our governor go through this, Rick Perry. I've seen Kay Bailey Hutchinson go through this. I saw Tom DeLay go through this. It's been going on for decades, and it's up to state legislatures to step in and provide a fairer process, to give grand juries a more open process where the defendant can come in and say, hey, this didn't really happen, and also have recordings of what's going on so that the defense knows what was actually said.
Do you think this will stop Trump? I mean, let's face it, the first GOP primary debate is in 4 months. It's in August. Iowa caucus follows real soon after in February.
Look, I don't know if anybody can really say, because we don't know the timing, how this is all going to work out. But I think this is so obviously a fraudulent case that I think most Republicans are going to realize that this is wrong. I don't think it's going to negatively affect them, at least in the Republican primary. And hopefully, you know, people will speak out. They've already done it. I've seen a lot of his even political enemies speaking out against this because they know this is wrong. And if it can be used against him, it certainly can be used against anybody else in America.
Well, Alvin Bragg is defending the charges. Here's what he said yesterday. Watch this.
Under New York state law, it is a felony to falsify business records with intent to defraud and an intent to conceal another crime. That is exactly what this case is about. 34 false statements made to cover up other crimes. These are felony crimes in New York State, no matter who you are. We cannot and will not normalize serious criminal conduct.
Well, normalize serious criminal conduct. Justice under DA Bragg seems to do just that. The New York Post highlighted 53-year-old Rodney Johnson, who was with nearly 90 arrests and was sent to prison twice. He just got multiple felony theft charges downgraded to misdemeanors last week, AG. So, I mean, do you see this different application of the law when it comes to Democrats?
Absolutely. This guy ran on a promise to go after Donald Trump. And then once he got in office, he set out to do it. And on top of that, as you said, this idea that somehow justice is being administered fairly when he's reducing all kinds of felony charges from murders to shoplifting and other serious crimes. And yet here he is focused on this crazy idea that even though he hasn't even stated that there is a federal crime. We don't even know what the crime is, and yet somehow he's concocted this theory to put the president in jail.
No, we don't know what the crime is. I want to get the panel's reaction here for a second, because can you put the same application of law on, for example, Hillary Clinton? When Hillary Clinton deleted those 30,000 emails, was she hiding for another crime? What about the Steele dossier? Her camp paid for the Steele dossier to come up with all this lie about Donald Trump colluding with Russia. The story goes viral across the world during the 2016 election, James.
Yeah, AG, I'm wondering, people are naturally going to ask. The Clinton campaign pays a law firm, which then pays Fusion GPS, which pays to collect this material, which we end up seeing as the dossier. I'm imagining that the Clinton campaign did not list that expense as hire through a law firm a group to dig up falsehoods, rumors, gossip, and lies about Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Is that a false records case that AG Bragg should be, or no, he's not an AG, that Mr. Bragg should be pursuing?
Yeah.
It certainly sounds like one, but as we all know, nothing ever happened with that. It seemed like there were some serious allegations that weren't properly focused on. No one went after her, and no one expects anybody to go after her. And it's just a double standard, and that's what's happening in America. It's happening across the country.
Yeah, and we see it right now in plain sight with the Biden bank records, Mike.
Yeah. Ken, if I may call you Ken, instead of AG. I take your point, and I think it's a very important one, that change has to be at the state level. People have to understand the importance of what they do with local and state elections. But would you be in favor of DA positions not being elected positions, being appointed instead, to try to remove the politics out of the position?
Real quick.
Yeah, look, I don't know, because I don't know that appointments necessarily mean politics is taken out. So I'm not confident that would work. I think we have to go back to the state level, and they need to start protecting us from these rogue DAs.
Unbelievable. Meanwhile, how about the rogue situation at the border? Texas Department of Safety and Border Patrol agents discovered more than 140 illegal migrants at 2 separate stash houses near El Paso. Mexico's president is now asking China to help stop the production of fentanyl, slamming the U.S., claiming that the U.S. is unjustly blaming Mexico and the cartels for the fentanyl crisis. AG, I remember when Trump was in charge, he told Xi Jinping on the phone, cut it out, stop sending fentanyl into America. Did they stop at that point, and then they just resumed it after Biden took office?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the numbers were much better under the Trump administration. They've massively increased by, I think, the first year he was out of office, 30%. So, yes, they did start importing more, and the drug cartels had a lot more room to maneuver with the Biden policy of just letting people cross the border. So it is a huge problem. This is a real issue where we have literally thousands of people dying every year because of this problem.
And I'm told that the CCP has Chinese nationals coming in right now, rising numbers in the Rio Grande Valley. I'm not sure what that's about.
Well, look, we have an open border. The president has advertised that the cartels make a lot of money off of it. It's a partnership, and why wouldn't they do it? If they had a reason for being here that was not good, this was the time to come, and the opportunity is really, really good for them right now.
All right, Ken, it's good to have you on the program. Thanks so much, AG Ken Paxton in Texas this morning. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.